Did you miss 49ers War Room? It was absolutely spectacular. Our guests did an amazing job.
They did. They did do an amazing job. And I would say shame on you, but luckily you can go back and watch it immediately after this, and you should definitely do so. So make sure you come back to the channel, go through Season 2 playlist, and find yourself some 49ers War Room.
You don't want to miss 49ers War Room. It's the best thing going today.
From the alley-oops at Keysar to the glory days at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way. From off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show. We are going to be talking interior defensive linemen. We did edge rushers before. We've done a lot of positions, in fact. Interior defensive line, though, are the big daddies. These guys get after it, and there's a lot of intriguing prospects the 49ers could potentially add to maybe replace a DJ Jones or one of those guys. We shall see.
Or sure up your bets with Javon Kinlaw, because you're not sure. You're not sure about the health, although the stuff he's been putting out recently, Ant, I do like seeing it.
He looks like a freaking manster. That's the truth. That guy's getting after it for sure.
Look, and we're getting after it as well. You make sure you get after it right now and hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. And Ant, let's get into this. Let's get into these defensive line prospects. Let's get into the guys that potentially the Niners could be looking at and could be targeting. Who's the first guy on your list?
Travis Jones, 6'4", 325 pounds out of UConn. He's a one technique, which means he's going to be a nose tackle in the 49ers 4-3. The role that DJ Jones was just playing, the role that it appears Javon Kinlaw is going to play. I thought, number one, the guy's huge. That's the first thing I wrote down.
It's fair.
Huge. Developmental pass rusher. So he's a guy that's working on his pass rush game. It's not all the way there. Of course, you're not asking a nose tackle to rush on third down. So their pass rush skills don't have to be completely refined, but something he needs to work on. I thought he had good hands, his good placement, able to get heavy hands on the opposing offensive lineman, and then be able to disengage when asked. And he's a space eater. He's a guy that eats up a lot of room. He's a two-gapper, as it would be. He can occupy blockers and not get pushed back, which is good for run-stopping ability. Now, the things that I thought were a little bit questionable was his athleticism. I didn't see, a top-flight athlete. We're used to seeing DJ Jones run all over the place.
Fair.
And he's not the athlete to the level of Javon Kinlaw as well, but Kinlaw was also supposed to be a huge three-tech, so there's that. And then at times he plays a little high. I thought at times that his pad level raised, but we know this is something that consistently happens in college. And then when they get to the NFL, these coaches work on these players getting lower and lower and lower. In fact, Chris Kasarik works on it every single day and really gets after it. So if he could fix those two things, I think he could be a real space eater in somebody's 4-3, potentially at the one tech position.
Look, I don't think I have as many concerns about like the athleticism with him. I thought for his size, he moved very, very well. But I understand exactly what you're talking about because we're used to someone of DJ Jones' size and Javon Kinlaw's size moving the way that they do, and he doesn't move the same exact way. I agree with you there. I also love his motor. I loved his motor. He was very active and aggressive, and per his coaches as well, from reports and things that I was seeing and some interviews I was seeing his coaches do talking about him, they love the work ethic out of this guy. This guy does not quit. This guy is consistently working and improving on his game. So let's get Chris Kasarik in here, who's got a ridiculously high motor. Let's get Daryl Tapp in there with him as well, and let's let these guys go to work with a guy like this. I think it would actually translate pretty well, but you are not wrong about the pass rush situation there, Ant. He is developmental in that area, but in the run fits and run situations, this guy's a monster.
Yeah, he is. And when I'm talking about the athleticism, I'm questioning whether he's going to be able to be a penetrator in the 49ers scheme. If he's going to be able to turn and get down the line of scrimmage and be able to run down a running back when he's going against his own scheme. Those are things that I have questions about. But other than that, he's a very good talent. And if the 49ers feel he meets the athletic requirements to be able to do the tasks that they've required him to do, then yeah, he could be a bang-up selection. But I don't know if he'll be there at 61. He's pretty good talent.
He is a pretty good talent. It's going to be very difficult for him to get to that spot. DeMarvin Leal, Texas A&M. Heard a lot of different people talk about this. I've seen a lot of different things that make me think that he might be decent as a 3-tech. How are you feeling about where he could fit or slide into with the San Francisco 49ers?
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation whether this guy's a 3 technique or a defensive end that plays a 7 tech in somebody's system. I think he could also play a 5 tech in the 3-4, depending on which scheme he goes into. 6'3", 283 pounds. So right away you start thinking that tweener role, right? The Solomon Thomas type size and length. That is something that is always drawn into question. The first thing I wrote down, in fact, Alex, was defensive end build. That was the first thing I noticed about him. Okay. 3 tech and 5 tech is what I wrote down after that. So there you go. Great motor, though. I mean, the guy gets after it, and he just continually does. And he works his hands really well.
Extremely well.
Like this guy's hand placement and the way that he continues to go from move to move to move to move, moving his hands, ripping, getting people's hands off him, it is really good. Like I really enjoyed that. Now, his first step, though, at times can be very average. He's not like one of those guys that gets off really quickly. And then I worry about him against double teams. This guy's a definite penetrator, so 49er-wise, that makes a lot of sense. He gets behind the line of scrimmage, is able to move with the zone guys and get down the line. But I worry about him being able to anchor, be able to get skinny and get between these double teams and hold up against the run if he's playing the 3-tech.
Look, I think that's fair, especially since there's a guy later that we're going to talk about that I don't think has any of these issues or problems or concerns that is further down on draft boards. That I think doesn't struggle against double teams at all. This is something that I saw on film as well, is there's concerns there. And what have we seen with the San Francisco 49ers in their front? They are going to try and double team the interior because you can't send to it Nick Bosa. He's just going to eat them alive. And they're going to have to, if you're going to try and dominate at the point of attack, right, then you have to make sure that you do something against Eric Armstead because you put him one-on-one, he was going to beat you. Last year with how dominant DJ Jones was, you couldn't put him one-on-one. He was going to eat you alive. You had to double at the point of attack, and that's where teams found success early in the season against San Francisco was double teaming and winning those double teams at the point of attack. A guy like this may not slot very well into this position, but I do like a lot of the other things that he does and a lot of his other skill sets. And the active hands that you discussed, Ant, is one of the best things about this guy on film. This guy is able to get in move after move after move, and the swim move of his is very nasty also. I love that swim move.
Yeah, I think he actually might need to play on the outside in somebody's defense. I'm not sure he's a 49ers wide 9 defensive end, but I think he could be a 4-3 defensive end in the league. Somebody that really does appreciate how well he uses his hands and continue to motor would be a nice rotational piece. So maybe that's what his niche is going to be in the NFL.
It possibly could be, Ant. So Cutback Crew, let us know what you thought about DeMarvin Leal and Travis Jones there out of UConn. You like either one of these? You think the Niners should be taking a look there at 61 if they were to get to that spot? Now, Mike from Nothing But Niners brought this guy up towards the back end of our draft. This was a guy he really, really liked out of Alabama, Phidarian Mathis. What are you thinking?
Phidarian Mathis, 6'4", 310 pounds. I thought he moved a lot better than what I initially thought he was going to. When I saw him, I was like, okay, how's this guy going to move? But I thought he moved pretty well. I see him as a 1 tech in the NFL. I think that is something he's going to play. That's a nose tackle. A very good first step. Like, where you saw the problem with DeMarvin Leal, maybe not getting the great first step. This guy has a great first step. He's got good pass rush moves. And for a 1 tech to have good pass rush moves, it gave me a little bit of the DJ Jones vibes as far as pass rush goes. And then he's an athlete. He gets down the line of scrimmage. He runs guys down. He doesn't stop. So those are good things from him. And when you're talking about an athletic nose tackle, this guy fits what the 49ers want to do. Now, I don't know if he's athletic enough to be the 3 tech, but definitely to play the 1 he can. Now, the one question with him is sometimes he plays high. His pad level starts to rise as the game moves on. As he gets more winded, gets more reps, he will rise. So being a part of a 49ers tremendous rotation would definitely benefit him, where he's not tasked with playing as many snaps as he played at Alabama. But I do think he's a good talent, and the 49ers selected him. He would be an absolute force once he got to work with Chris Kasarik.
And I don't have any concerns about IQ because he played a lot of different roles at Alabama in that front, meaning that he can kind of fit into and do what you need him to do and understand responsibilities, terminology, things of that nature at a high level. It's crazy, Ant, because you just said he played a lot of snaps at Alabama, and you're not wrong, but one of the knocks that I've been seeing on him, and I watched a couple of other people breaking down his film because I couldn't get some of the coach angle that I wanted to. So I resorted to watching other people breaking it down, most time on mute, but occasionally just peeking to hear what they have to say because getting other people's perspective on people helps as well. And a lot of people think that he rotated in a lot, and therefore there might be effort/motor concerns because of the amount of times he comes in and out of the game and the rotation there, thinking maybe he's either not in great shape or he's not a fit in certain situations. I think Alabama just has a lot of talent along the front and plays in a rotation, which for me means that he may transition perfectly into San Francisco, which plays with a heavy rotation. So, folks, people out there breaking down Fedarian Mathis film. If you're breaking down film and you don't like him because he plays in a rotation, please, NFL teams keep sleeping on him. Let him fall to San Francisco. I wouldn't hate this.
Yeah, absolutely gigantic roster sizes in college with supreme athletes like they get with all the scholarships. Why wouldn't you have a rotation and keep these guys healthy?
And
they're able to put in another guy that's just as good or better than Fedarian Mathis. Why wouldn't they do that? That just makes a lot of sense to me. I have no problems with it. Do I believe he's in the best shape of his life? In college, no. Do I think he's going to get in better shape as he transitions to the NFL? Yes. Do I have any concerns about him being able to play in and play out? No, I don't. And being part of the 49ers rotation can definitely help with that.
Fair, Ant. Fair. Now, let's get to a gentleman that I personally know already you like because we talked about this pre-show. Logan Hall out of Houston. What do you like about this guy? Do you think he's a scheme fit for San Francisco? And if so, why? And then where would you take him?
Yeah. Logan Hall, 6'6", 283 pounds out of Houston. But first off, I love the length, right? We've seen the 49ers go with length at the 3-tech position, whether it was, arms as a slid in, recently, but Buckner, Kinlaw, they go with a bigger, oversized 3 technique. Logan Hall could fit that role for sure. Now, it's a guy that you could plug and play. I know the 283 doesn't sound good, but we all know when he comes in the NFL, he's going to be 290 plus. He's going to put on that extra size and speed and muscle, but he's still not going to lose the speed. Now, the one thing I loved about him was his length. That is something he does really well. He gets offensive players away from him and then is able to disengage, and his quickness is very noticeable on film. He gets after these guys, and he's able to get, moves back past the offensive linemen before they even know what happened. He played a little bit on the edge. He played some inside. What I liked about it is he's a mismatch for guards. The same things you say about Armstead, you'll say about him. The question is his pad level against double teams. Sometimes when he goes against a double team, he will try to swim and go over the top, will allow them to get underneath, and then they drive him back. So I didn't think he's going to have to work in that angle of the game. But to me, he's a tremendous talent. And I would be willing to take this guy in the 3rd round. I for sure would. If you've seen him anywhere near 93 or 105 and the Niners pounced on him, you would know he was a nice rotational piece behind Armstead and the eventual replacement for Eric Armstead.
Fair. I think, would you say that you believe, based on what you've seen, because this is kind of how I felt, that right now his best fit is sort of a pass rushing role there on the interior? Because I thought his change of direction was phenomenal on film. And you said the speed. I thought so as well. So I tried to look it up his 40 time and looking at a couple different things because I want to, see. The 40 time was a 4.88, but his coaches discussed his speed and said that he ran faster than Peyton Turner, who clocked 21.5 miles per hour. They've seen him outrun him in practice in certain situations on angles. So I think the speed is there, like the overall speed and the first burst ability. It may take a little bit of time to accelerate, but when you're a D lineman, if you got a good first step, that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's what I'm really talking about. It's the short area quickness, and he's able to get after and get past offensive linemen before they know what happened. And I think that is something that you need on the interior part of your offensive line in Chris Kasarik's style of defensive line play, where it's about penetration, it's about creating angles, and then being able to get in the backfield and wreak havoc. That's why a guy that normally wouldn't be the normal size for a 3-tech, but looks like a defensive end who can transition to the inside because of the style of defense that you're going to play on the line. So that's why he makes a lot of sense. And then you just look at the measurables, the 6-foot height, the 290-pound frame, and you're looking at a guy that could potentially develop into a very dynamic player for your defense.
I like that, Ant. Would you discourage or encourage Arden Key type role versatility for him moving on to the interior on pass rushing downs?
I mean, I think he could come in there right away and be in that sort of a role for sure. Fair. Where he's a guy that could come in and play on 3rd down and and pass rush. But I do think he's a guy that can develop into a 3-down defensive lineman for you. So yeah, I mean, he's going to have that versatility, and you want those guys in your defense. But I think he's more to that. I think you could play him at defensive end. I think he could set the edge for the Niners. I think that's something he could do. Just with a little bit of work from Kasarik and Daryl Tapp.
Fair. I like that, Ant. I do like that a lot. Matthew Butler, Tennessee, defensive tackle there. Thoughts on this? I liked his first step at times. I thought it was inconsistent, though. I didn't see, explosive first step ability. There's times where he gets off quickly and is beating guys to the punch, but it's not all the time. It's not every snap. I do think he has some good flexibility. What are you thinking overall?
Yeah, did I say I gave the previous player a star?
You didn't say the previous player.
Logan Hall was a star for me, by the way. I had forgot to say that. But Matthew Butler was one that I was on the edge of star or no star because some of the stuff that he did. I mean, the guy is absolutely big and strong. I mean, every bit of his 6'3", 297 frame is on display He's very, very athletic for size. I did think he was a guy that could play 3 tech in the 49ers system. I liked him. Good long arm. This guy gets into your chest plate and he drives you back. All that strength is put into it. And then he's a very good athlete. So once you had those intangibles, I thought he was somebody that Chris Kasarik could mold into a very good defensive lineman. To me, he reminded me of some of the guys we have, currently, and the athleticism and the way they're able to move, the leverage that they play with. So he's a nice target for the 49ers. He played in the SEC and held up very well there. So I think this is a guy that could play at 6'3", about 305 pounds, put on a little bit of weight, and would be a nice solid 3-tech for the 49ers in their rotation. Not good enough to start over an Armstead, for instance, but somebody that you could add to a rotation on the interior.
I thought he fired out too low, which I liked. I like the fact that his get off is low. He's low in space, low center of gravity, not giving a lot of body and things for offensive linemen to get a hold of and target. The big thing too is this guy is a 6-year senior, so this guy got the additional COVID year from everything that happened and took advantage of it. Took advantage of it a huge way. Put up his best numbers this past season. He's definitely flying up boards and is definitely a prospect now that people have eyes on. More before, he was probably going to be going later in drafts if he didn't have that extra year of development. He took advantage of it, and that's one of the nice things that we've seen out of this is some players got that extra additional year. Now, that doesn't mean they come into the league a little bit older, and there's people who say, well, they come in older, maybe their longevity, their lifespan, the top of their game before they hit that twilight and start to, the downturn isn't there yet, but they come in more ready than ever before as well, which could be something that plays in his favor and plays well for him. I don't hate where he's at in drafts right now, and where would you go with this? Are you thinking 105 is a spot that you would take a guy like this, or is it a little bit later?
Yeah, I think this would be like a 134 guy. This is a 4th-round pick for me. And, if he goes before that, you congratulate the team that got him. Like, I think he's a good player. But I wouldn't take him before you pick at 134 in the 4th round.
Fair. Right. I don't disagree with you there. There are some things I like about him, but not as much as the next guy we're going to talk about, Zachary Carter. Because I don't know if you've known this Cutback crew. Number one, I'm a Florida Gator fan. That's a given. But number two, there have been a lot of Florida Gators discussed this year. We didn't get to talk about Kyrie Elam. Why? Because he's not going to 61. He's not falling that far. He's not falling anywhere near where the San Francisco 49ers can select him, and that hurts. Hurts not to be able to talk about my favorite Florida Gator from this past year. But you know what we can do, Ant? We can talk about my second favorite Florida Gator from the University of Florida for this past season, Zachary Carter, who is an absolute monster. This might be my favorite interior defensive lineman in this draft class. Talk about a guy who played on the edge, and I remember him specifically as edge, and I talked about this with you pre-show, where I started watching, when I started doing edge rushers, I started with Zach Carter because I want to start with my Florida Gator guys, of course, because I'm biased. And I started watching the film, and I was like, he has versatility. I think he actually translates better than the inside. I'm going to put him in my interior D-line and go there. And by the time I got done with my interior defensive lineman, for me, it was my favorite guy. And I'm going to let my bias show here, and I'm totally fine with that. He's got a nasty single arm. He's deceptively strong and explosive, and he has a hybrid flexibility and versatility, like the Eric Armstead-esque role, though he doesn't have Eric Armstead's size. And he does not lose versus double teams. This is a guy who consistently on film, I see winning and at times beating double teams. Now, he doesn't dominate double teams like we saw at Armstead and like we saw at DJ Jones, but he doesn't lose either, which is something we've seen out of Javon Kinlaw. Not losing, being able to take on, stagnate, not get pushed off. I think he needs to work on a rip in his arm over move, but I think he's extremely raw as well and can be developed and harnessed and turned into something. He's a guy I have a 3rd-round grade on, Ant. I think he's a 3rd-round type talent that isn't going in the 3rd round, which means gem and glory for the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, you know what? I did like Zachary Carter as well, 6'4", 282 pounds. I believe he'll probably play in the NFL around 295 pounds, but he's got a very good athleticism. He's a star player for me as well. So this is one of those rare times where we agree on a Florida player.
Fair.
So well done. He's explosive. I mean, a super explosive, strong, good pass rush moves, heavy hands, and is a penetrator. I mean, he gets in the backfield and he wreaks havoc, but those heavy hands help him get offensive linemen on their heels. I thought that was very, very nice. And I wrote down that he was a 3-tech. I thought that was something he could be in the NFL. You wonder about that size, but because I've seen his frame and how he carries his weight, I do believe he could put on a little bit more size and then be able to translate there. I get the comparisons to Eric Armstead. The difference between him and Armstead are Armstead's freakishly tall and being able to carry the weight that he carries and still be able to move the way he does. But this guy's very athletic, and that's why I think he fits in the 49ers scheme. He is more adjacent to the Arden Key role, right? He's that guy already. He's literally built like Arden Key, maybe a little bit more physically, built in the upper body, but a very solid player. My question was for him was, can he consistently beat double teams in the NFL?
I don't know if he can beat them.
Yeah, I seen him be able to hold up against double teams in the SEC, but I'm wondering if he can beat them. Can he learn how to get skinny, be able to break through those double teams and make plays? Because that's something the 49ers had to do last year. Armstead and DJ Jones got that done on a consistent basis. If he can do that, he's going to be one of those guys that could definitely fit in the rotation. So, yeah, if the 49ers took him, I'd be excited about it.
Not going to be unexcited about it. That's for sure, my guy. Chris Hinton, defensive tackle, Michigan. How you feeling?
Yeah, you know what? Chris Hinton was one of those interesting guys. 6'3", 305 pounds from Michigan. I thought he was a one-tech, playing with a lot of really, really great talent around him. There were times when I thought he flashed and he looked good, and you're like, oh, okay, like I like where this is going. And then there were times you're like, okay, he disappears in games, and where did he go? He's slow to start. His snap, I saw one snap where he got off tremendously fast, and with his skill set, was able to do some damage. The problem was, there was also times he wasn't. There was a slow start to him. I didn't like that. And then he's just not that great at pass rush. I'm not even sure he's a developmental guy. He's one of those guys that's a one or first and second down run stopper in the NFL. I don't think he's a guy that you can have in there on pass downs. So Chris Hinton's a solid player, but no one that I was like wowed about and the dynamics that he would be able to display in the NFL.
It felt like a reliance on power on film. Like if he can get guys and get his hands on guys early and get guys off their spot, then he can control and he's fine. But if you're asking him to try and shed, disengage, make any sort of move, club rip, anything, this is where he starts to struggle. The hands and hand placement and things of that nature is just not a strength of his. But like you talked about, when he does get off the snap quick and is able to get into guys early and catch them off guard and not let them get their hands on him and control, he can have some success. So there is that there, but it doesn't feel like this would be an option for San Francisco because he has less versatility in the rotation. He's more pigeonholed in terms of what he can provide to your defensive front right now. And the Niners have a lot of guys who have flexibility, which means they can play them any down, any distance. Whereas if this guy's on the field, if a team sees him rotating in, they're sitting there going, we have an advantage here in certain things. We can go a pass it here, go play action, and this guy's going to be in trouble.
Yeah, the 49ers have definitely been trending more towards more athletic guys playing that one tech. And I thought at times I questioned his athleticism. So maybe he's not a fit for the 49ers and what they want to do.
Might not be. Might not be. But John Ridgeway, potentially could be. There's some good things to like about the gentleman out of Arkansas. What are some of your things?
Well, here's the first off. He's massive. He's 6'5", 321 pounds out of Arkansas. He's what I saw as a one tech. I think he's a one tech in the NFL. He's got a great motor. I mean, he gets after it consistently. He's got a lot of power. And if you want to watch a defensive lineman that consistently disengages from offensive players, it's Ridgeway. The guy has really strong hands and he's able to disengage. He's got long arms. I really like that. So he was somebody that I was excited about. The problem with him was at times his hands were slow to have contact. So when he got his hands up, and got into somebody, there was power there. When there wasn't, and he let his hands slip, the offensive lineman could get a hold of him. But I thought for his size and speed ratio, he would be absolutely fantastic in Chris Kasarik's rotation.
He really would, man. Talk about power. Talk about just displacement ability. This guy displaces people. He moves people. He gets them off their spot. He gets them off balance. And if you're off balance and you let this guy get his hands on you early, you're in trouble. We could be seeing what we saw last year with Laken Tomlinson being literally walked back into Jimmy Garoppolo for what felt like an embarrassing second. Be like, oh, Jimmy just stand there flat-footed. It's like, no, your guard just got absolutely decimated. And what's your quarterback supposed to do when he's dropping back in space, trying to read the field, and this lineman is slowly getting walked back into the quarterback? This guy has that ability to be able to displace, move guys, get them off their spot, and start marching his way towards said quarterback. But you're right, that you brought on some of the weaknesses there. But I did like a lot of the things. And this is a guy it's odd with him because there's some people that love Ridgeway. They absolutely love him and put him as one of the top 3 guys in this draft on the interior D-line. And then there's some places and some people that feel like this is a guy who all he has is power and they don't see the extra things there because he's not necessarily the most fluid guy in space moving around, but with his size, with his stature, the way he's built, I think he's flexible enough and moves well enough that he's going to be a problem in the league, especially if you get him into the right coaching staff and the right scheme.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to have elite something, right? And he has elite power. So
absolutely.
As long as you get his hand placement and technique down, he's going to be able to cause some problems and at least stop the run. So as a first and second down run stopper, he's good at that. But like you talked about, he can also walk a offensive lineman straight back into the quarterback. That's something he does really well. And with his length, he's going to be able to disengage as well. I think he could develop his pass rush ability. I'm not saying he's ever going to be a 3-down defensive lineman in the league, but he could definitely be one of those guys that can make an impact.
He definitely could. He definitely could. So TCC, let us know what you think about that. If you like that, let us know in the comment section down below right this minute, because we're already here. Right? We're to the last gentleman that we're going to be talking about, because after watching the film, number one, knowing what the 49ers are right now, there's not a lot of options for them to go a defensive line. And if you're going to go defensive line, you can't get too late in this draft, because if you do, you're talking about a guy who's potentially not going to even be making your roster, has a chance to start or be in the rotation. Haskell Garrett, defensive tackle, interior defensive lineman, out of Ohio State. What are you thinking?
Yeah, if you're looking at his measurables, 6'2", 300 pounds, you think DJ Jones right away. Mm-hmm. That's what the build is. He has a great first step. He gets after it really quick, gets down the line. So he's one of those guys that's able to play against zone offenses because he can get down the line of scrimmage and fill holes. And then his pass rush moves are pretty good. I thought overall he looked pretty dynamic. My problem with him is at times when he got put in one-on-one situations, he didn't win. And when you are tasked with being one-on-one, when you're playing with Nick Bosa, you're expected to win. So that was something that I believe is a reason why he's a little bit farther down the board than he probably should be, because there's a lot of really, really nice traits about him. That first step is elite first step. I mean, he gets off the ball quickly and is able to get in the backfield. So I like him a lot. And I think in the late rounds, if he's still around, I think the Niners should probably take a look at him. He could potentially be somebody they add to their rotation. The only problem is that defensive line for the Niners is absolutely stacked. So whether he could, go in there and make the team is a big question.
It is a big question. But what I don't question is football IQ with this guy, because I saw times on film where you have his guy pulling in space. He understands what his responsibility is, and he's able to get off the ball, knife through, and disrupt plays in the backfield. Things that we saw DJ Jones type things that we saw him do, where he gets off quickly. A guy is out of position. He has the leverage point of attack, understands what his role is in that spot, and takes huge advantage and makes big plays in the backfield. I saw Haskell Garrett do as well. So the IQ is there. The question is just that, right? All the other things that you talked about and the things you brought up, especially, is he talented enough to be able to crack this roster and do things better than some of the names that we already have? Can he be more productive than a Mo Hurst? Can he flash better than we've seen out of guys like Kevin Givens on this roster? I don't know. And the more you're not the guy right behind either Javon Kinlaw or Eric Armstead, you start being put in a position, if you're not the next guy, you might not be the guy because of the amount of DNs that have flexibility and versatility to move inside. Guys that we've talked about, right? Samson Ebicom could potentially move inside. Kerry Hyder is most definitely going to be moving onto the interior. We have Teray that's now a part of this group as well that's been brought in. There are guys who have flexibility to move around and do different things. Haskell Garrett is not a guy who has the same amount of flexibility and versatility to be all over that line, which means if he's not the guy right behind your starters, can he make this 53? And is it worth the risk of bringing this guy into the fold with this group and not being able to put him on the 53 and then trying to sneak a guy like this to the practice squad?
Yeah, I mean, that's what you're going to do, right? You're going to bring him in to compete because you have Mo Hurst that pretty much does what he does, but at a higher level, because Mo Hurst is one of those tremendous players who just was injured. I mean, that's really what it came down to. You have Kevin Givens, who's played in the system for a while, and you know what he can do in your system. And then you signed Hassan Ridgeway, who has a lot of ability as well. I think
that was the name that was
escaping. Yeah, the 49ers defensive interior line is really good. And like you talked about, the abundance of edge rushers on the outside means that when you get to third down in these specialty times, they're going to have extra edge rushers on the field. They're going to get after it, which means these other guys are going to play a rotation on first and second down. Do you need to add another player to that? I don't know. I mean, that's going to be one of the big questions for the 49ers. I think there are areas they'd rather address than defensive line. But if you get to a point in the draft and you have a guy that's maybe like a second or third round grade on the interior defensive line, and you're at the end of the fifth or into the sixth round, at some point you have to be like, you know what, the value's just there. We got to go get this guy and let him compete and see what happens. Because potentially if you find a rookie that's going to play at the level of one of the veterans, you save money and then potentially have a guy for 4 years instead of the 1 year deal you had on the other player.
True, and if the other guy's putting together an impressive camp and an impressive preseason, the vet guy is, you might be able to turn around and deal said player and get some capital in return and save money in the process. So there are definitely options there. The question is are one of these guys going to be that, right? Are one of these guys going to be the home run value option for the 49ers later or fall a little bit because of all the talent everywhere else that is in this draft? Some of these guys are in that tweener mold that we talked about, and maybe teams aren't looking for tweener molds. They're looking for something specific. They're looking for a big-bodied, big, burly, bruising guy who can be a presence on rundowns. And if that's the case, some of these other guys that we've talked about, the Zach Carters of the world, right, the Haskell Garretts of the world that have pass rushing ability, maybe they fall off the wayside.
Yeah, it could be. We'll see how far these guys drop. The farther they drop, the more likely they are to end up in San Francisco.
Accurate.
If they feel like they're one of those guys you can't pass up on. Elijah Mitchell, the 49ers did not plan on taking 2 running backs in that draft. But when you have a 3rd-round grade on somebody and you're in the 6th round and they're still sitting there, you can't pass up taking that player. That'd be bad business. That'd be a bad way to build your team. So I think that's a similar thing that could happen here. Is defensive lineman going to be on the forefront of the 49ers, eyes? I don't think so. I think there's going to be 10 to 12 players that they ultimately are looking to target in this draft. They're going to strategically try to go get those. But if one of these guys fall when those guys are gone, maybe they go for it.
Could be the case. And TCC, if that's what happens, who is it? Who is the name and where is it going to be? We want to hear from you. Let us know which of these interior defensive linemen could go to San Francisco and where. We want to hear from you on this. And while you're down there commenting away, don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell, Ant, because they don't want to miss more draft coverage. They don't want to miss more war rooms, special war rooms coming up. They don't want to miss those, Ant.
No, we're going to have war rooms galore. Actually, no, but it's all going to finish, on the Wednesday before the draft when Alex, me and you do our very own war room. We'll let everyone know that. We're going to be the general managers for that one. The TCC will help us. They will be in the war with us, and they'll try to help us decide who to take. It will be our final mock as it would be. So I'm excited for that. We've been through all the different positions now. We've been going through all the different players, and I think we're ready to roll for this war room when it comes up.
Man, I'm excited, man. We've now officially covered all the positions, and some of the people may be going, no, you guys haven't. You haven't talked about quarterbacks. There's no point. There's no point to do it. The Niners are not going to take a guy early in this draft. They're not taking a guy in the middle of this draft, and maybe they take a flyer on the guy with pick 262 with Mr. Irrelevant if they decide to keep it. The likelihood is no quarterbacks, and because likelihood of no quarterbacks, Ant, that's a wrap on all the positions. We've covered them all.
Yeah, and that's the thing is finally we've gotten through a lot of prospects. There's still prospects to be watched before we ever even get to War Room, because we do have a lot of things coming up as far as that goes, but we have to talk about everyone, because when we're live for the draft party, we got to be able to talk about everyone that's available in the 2nd and 3rd round. And then day 3, we got to be able to talk about all those guys too.
It's very true. So make sure you're here for all of it. We still got tons of videos coming out. We still got tons of live streams coming your way. You don't want to miss any of them. And until the next one, Cutback Crew and the Faithful, stay safe.
Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.
You stuck around all the way to this point. Well, I hope by this point you've at least liked and subscribed if you haven't already. And there's some cards over there, Ant, too, with some other high quality videos they can check out.
Yeah, click one of the links and watch one of the videos. It's going to be great.
We'll see you there.